Guys, this week we're kind of taking a different turn here. We're kind of talking about things that you probably don't think about as you're planning your wedding or as a vendor that you just don't think about. We're talking about planning weddings with disabilities, following ADA code, things like that. Today we have a guest, Kelly.
Yes.
Kelly's son is
Travis.
And what's his situation?
Travis had a spinal cord injury at 17, and up until then he was a fully healthy young man, and he went from that to being in a power chair in 12 hours.
This is wild.
So
Absolutely wild.
I mean, he didn't get the power chair in 12 hours. That took several months.
Of
but,
course. However,
but
that, yeah.
And it's been amazing to me through the years as we've learned to navigate this, how little we actually know, how much I was oblivious to my whole life.
I feel like in life in general, but in particular this wedding planning process, like, wedding planning is so stressful, and now, you know, I know that you're helping to plan your daughter's wedding, right? And which is very exciting. But like layer in navigating like venues that don't have accessibility, or vendors who, you know, although well-intentioned, don't really know what they need to know in order to, you know, be able to provide an experience that they would want to otherwise, you know? So I think that this is a topic that is really important, is not talked about enough, and I really appreciate you kind of reaching out and like wanting to talk about this, because you know, it's just not something that's top of mind when it comes to wedding planning.
You don't know what you don't know
Yeah.
until you need the information.
Yeah.
So this is great timing for me because, as I've mentioned to Heather before, I had a bride who maybe 3 months ago reached out. I have a shipping container bar, so to get on it's about 3 feet high.
Okay.
And she was so disappointed when I told her that there was like no way for me to accommodate wheelchairs.
Right.
But she also had like 12 people that were coming in wheelchairs, which wasn't really going to be feasible for our trailer anyways. But like instantly my mind went to, I never thought about this.
Right, yeah. Because why would you?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and the more that I thought about it, the more research I've done, I'm like, wow, this is a lot trickier than...
It's so tricky, and you know, my son's situation is not, it's not uncommon, but it's not super common. But as the baby boomer population is also aging, we also have grandparents and parents who are using mobility devices that in numbers that really have never been like as big an issue. You know, it's the occasional bride who might have a grandmother who's in a wheelchair or something like that, but now it might be her parents, or it might be, you know, his grandparents or siblings or whatever, or a whole bunch of people, like you said, 12 people, you know, all in chairs. That's,
I mean, when I was planning my own wedding, what are we up to, like 700 years ago, something like that? I don't know, it just keeps getting further and further away. But, you know, my grandmother, you know, she was in a wheelchair, like she struggled to walk around. And so, you know, the venue had a ramp, but I didn't think to check the route as to like how would my grandmother get from the parking lot into the venue, you know, and back into the and into the space that we're getting married in, you know, like actually follow the route. I was like, oh, there's a ramp, okay, that'll be fine. But like I ended up, and I was in 1,000 places that day, and she was like, you know, my OG, she's my person. And all of a sudden I turn around and I see her like struggling to walk up these 20 steps up into the venue because it just became forgotten, you know, in the scope of the day. And I felt terrible.
Or it's so out of the way, and you know, they're in the back corner in this dark, dingy murder alley that, you know, they have to come in through, and you're like, wait, what is even happening? This is not how I wanted somebody that was important to get to come to my event.
I feel a lot of places the exterior is taken care of, like the entrance to get in is usually taken care of. Not a lot, I should say.
No,
you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And then, but when you get inside, I don't think there's much thought of like, oh, there's a step there. Like, how do we get over that one step?
Yeah.
How do we get down that one step? And
and that happens a lot, like a lot. when my son graduated, he was actually still in spinal cord rehab when he had his high school graduation,
Oh wow.
which was at Kleinhans.
Uh-huh.
And so they gave him a day pass to go and graduate. And of course, I reached out to his school, and then I reached out to Kleinhans, and I'm like, "Hi, are you accessible?" And they're like, "Yes, we're accessible." And I'm like, "Okay, great." Right, and they assured me, and I called like 5 times.
And that was so new for you then too,
right,
right?
and
So
brand
that was-
new. Like I'm still
You're
trying to
just like,
figure
okay,
it all
we're
out.
good.
Right, and I had to rent a wheelchair van to drive to Buffalo to do all of this, right? And we get there, and it ended up being fine for him. Although that's a whole thing about how no one had the key to run the motorized lift, and they had to call somebody, and this and that, and but the part that no one had thought about, despite being accessible, is that their elevators were out of order,
Oh,
and which wasn't as big a deal because the graduation was held on the main floor, but all the restrooms were in the basement, right?
It's things that you literally don't think of, right? Like you have to, someone has to actually like walk through it and have the mindset of,
Right.
if I am in a wheelchair, and you brought up a good point when we were speaking earlier, it's like there's wheelchairs and then there's power chairs.
Right.
Power chairs are very heavy. It's a lot of parts to it. It's
It's a
just
lot of
the
parts.
weight of the actual chair is very heavy. You can't just have people lift it up a step or two.
Right.
You know what I mean?
His current chair is 450 pounds, and it's a light one.
Yeah. And so it's like different types of accessibility and different types of, considerations that people need. And yeah, it's the video you sent me about the bride, and I'll share it on our socials, about her doing her due diligence and walking through the venue to make sure before she signed any paperwork and all those things. And then they kind of signed her and got her deposit, and it was about wedding day, and they said, oh, well, the parking lots, the only accessible place from the parking lot to the actual venue is going to be locked.
Right.
It's going to be locked.
wait a minute.
Yeah. And we can't
Come on.
unlock it unless you pay an extra charge or for whatever reason.
Right.
And then also, she had a ramp. It looked like a kind of like a gazebo, like an outdoor kind of a space that she was getting married in, and they said, oh, we'll have a ramp so you can go to the altar by yourself, and the ramp wasn't there, so she's at the end of the aisle
And there's
like
no ramp.
and there's no ramp, so she has no way to independently get to her own place for the ceremony. And like
Right.
the emotional weight of it, the like logistical weight, like all those things come into place, and it's like, this is someone's special day.
I was gonna say, you spend your whole life thinking about that and dreaming about that, and I'm sure that she didn't think that she was gonna get to the end of the aisle, and instead of everybody wanting to cry because she's so beautiful, everyone's just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you pay tens of thousands of dollars to a venue, ask them if they're compliant or accessible, and then they drop the ball like that?
Well, I think to be completely fair and to try and give them some credit, they think they are.
Yeah.
True, but if you know there's a wedding taking place and you have that locked, when
And they
somebody
may have
calls-
other reasons that they have never, that they've never realized impede the accessibility.
Sure.
They had
Yeah,
some,
no, that makes, I get it, I get
they
it.
had somebody go through at one point, and it might have been somebody that worked there 10 years ago,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? And say, oh, everything's good, and they never think about it again because it's never come up again in exactly that same way. Or maybe, maybe they had a fight in that parking lot six months ago, and now they locked that door. And it really becomes a matter of, what questions do I need to ask? And how do I even know to ask these questions?
Yeah.
So saying that, have you found anywhere that has a guide that is
No.
good now?
No. You kind of make
write one.
Well,
Kelly.
yeah,
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
I mean, because when I was looking for that bride, I was using AI just because I didn't even know where to go.
Right.
And
Right.
like, I was like, okay, how long does this ramp have to be to get up 3 feet? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't.
Oh yeah, and we have definitely encountered it, and we did it ourselves. My son couldn't get into my dad's house for 4 years. right? And that's where we held all of our family events
Mhm.
because we couldn't figure out how we were going to make that work in a way because there's a tree there, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, and what do we have to do and how do we manage this? And especially in Buffalo and in, you know, in other cities that are older, there's a lot of buildings that are also
For sure.
grandfather claused into not having to
Yeah.
comply. And, you know, and that's fine because it's so much money to do adaptations. But also at the same time, right? Like you just want to be able to go and do the things that everybody else gets to.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
When you guys first started planning, I mean, obviously you said that, you know, his accident happened when he was 17, right?
Mhm.
And so you guys have kind of lived with, this is normal, right? This is your new
As,
normal.
yeah,
for a
as
while.
normal as it can be.
But like, even during the wedding planning process, were there aspects of it that you thought would be more straightforward, but ended up having complications you didn't anticipate?
I think the sheer number of places that say they're accessible
Yeah,
is very, very low.
sure.
You know, there's a lot of places that say, "Oh, we can get a wheelchair in here," right? But if you think about that, we can get a wheelchair in here doesn't mean it's accessible.
Yeah.
Right? It means your door's wide enough, and it means you think that if you tip a manual chair,
Mhm.
you can then maneuver it.
Yeah.
But if you have a power chair, a 4-inch curb, which isn't very high,
Yeah.
is absolutely a stopper.
Impassable, yeah.
I'm trying to imagine that because I was pushing my father-in-law around for a while when he was in a wheelchair, and he's 250 pounds,
Mhm.
and his chair might weigh 30 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
And even myself, like I'm a big guy, getting him up that curb
Mhm.
was no joke. It's
Right. And
you're,
that's
you're
and
pulling
that's in a
dead, you're
manual
pulling
chair.
dead weight almost
Yep.
Mhm.
because they can't help you
Right.
at all.
Right.
So
they do make little tiny ramps that are portable that can be used and everything, and those can be really, really helpful. But a lot of places don't even know how to use them properly or how to secure them to make sure
mhm.
that it's going to be safe.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's a solution, but is it a solution, right? I mean,
It's a Band-Aid.
it is. And the little ramps, especially for places that maybe can't be converted, are wonderful, but you have to make sure your staff knows how to use them. You have to make sure that your staff is going to use them in a way that is empathetic and unobtrusive as well. A little shout out to Lucky Day Whiskey Bar. My son loves to go there for dinner. One of the reasons is they have a step, but he makes a reservation. They say, you know, give us a shout when you get here, and he does, and they come up, they put the ramp down, and
Awesome.
in he goes.
That's great.
And when they drop off the check, they make sure someone goes and puts the ramp back
That's
outside.
awesome.
That's really
You know,
nice.
and it's in staff training and
Yeah.
in the way they have it set up.
Yeah. I feel like there are some vendors that really do a good job of thinking about, you know, different people with different accessibility, with different disabilities, seen or unseen. Like they really try to be as inclusive as possible, not just in words on a piece of paper, but actually in action. I know we've interviewed Bridal Chateau, and Beth has all of her staff go to training for a variety of everything from physical disability to like ADHD and anxiety
That's
and all
fantastic.
that sort of a thing. She told me a story about, I think it was on a podcast last year, about how she had a bride come in who was deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had her entire staff learn how to sign, "Are you ready to say yes to the dress?"
That's fabulous.
So that like she could feel that moment,
Mhm.
and she could feel like, okay, I'm not different. This is my moment. Like it's
Great. I
special,
get to
just like
participate.
I get to participate. And I think that's the one thing that, like, yes, there's logistic aspects of the little ramps and how do you get people in, but also like he just wants to see his sister get married
Right.
at the end of the day, and you just want to enjoy this process of your daughter getting married and helping
Right.
to plan it, and like you have this mental list of all these other things running through your brain, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's tough.
It is, and you know, you think about it, and there's so many different types of disabilities, and again, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
I had I was speaking with someone and she's blind, and she's like, I don't even know that my dress is gonna look like what I want it to look like. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, and it comes down to, you know, there's descriptors and ways of communicating that and things like that, but no one knows that they need to do it.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
It's true.
yeah.
Oh boy. I guess so. As you guys have been on this process, so I guess before we even go into that, like, where are you guys with wedding planning right now? Like, do we have a date? Do we have a place? Do we have a what's our status at the moment?
So we are looking at October of next year, so we
Okay.
still have lots of time.
Yeah.
They have decided at this point on a destination wedding, which is nice.
Yeah.
They're looking at New Orleans,
Love New
which
Orleans.
adds a complete different layer. They're now going to have
road trip.
They're
Road trip!
right?
Live.
They now have
Kelly's daughter's wedding.
Right?
It's the pod.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But they have to plan an extra trip,
Sure.
the extra
Yeah.
expense, to make sure that everything that they want to have
Mhm.
is actually going to be as it was presented on paper.
Sure. Yeah. And get
That
stuff
sounds
in
awful.
writing.
I'd hate to have to go.
Hate to have to go do that, right?
But I mean, I think it also speaks to, like, you're going down there and you're gonna make this extra effort. Get it in writing.
Absolutely.
Get it in writing.
Absolutely, 100%. And you still have no real guarantee.
Yeah, that's really difficult. As you've kind of gone through vendors and you're kind of going through this process, have you run into, like, are most people understanding, or has anyone been like totally tone deaf and you're just, you know what, I gotta go, I can't.
There's been a little bit of that. There's
Yeah.
been, you know, and it's not, I don't know if it's tone deaf or just dismissive, or they think that it's just not really a problem,
Yeah.
right? You know, we're back to the ramp stuck in a corner next to the dumpster,
Yeah.
and you know, well, we got a ramp, you can come in, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you they come in and there's a drop off and there's no way to get to the actual, you know, ballroom.
Yeah.
And that's happened looking at a couple places. I'm not going to name anybody though.
Sure.
I'm sure at least one would probably recognize themselves in that description.
Sure.
Or they all do, and they're like, oh
That'll
man,
be
we better
right.
fix this.
Right?
For vendors who, you know, maybe they've thought about it, but they don't really know how to make themselves like more, like, they want to be able to help, they want to be able to participate, they want to be able to change certain things about the way that they operate or the logistics of things. Like, what would you say to them?
Don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Yeah.
I think if someone calls and tells you they have accessibility needs, the first question they should say is, you know, what do you need from us to be able to make this day the way you want it to be?
Yeah.
Right? It could be something as simple as, we're not asking you to move the ramp from back behind the dumpster, but could we maybe put out a beautiful sign near it that says accessible entrance this way?
Yeah.
Or
That's a great idea. That's an easy,
Yeah,
great
it's an
idea.
easy
Yeah.
fix,
Yeah.
you know, create a path of, you know, pretty ribbons over there so
Mhm.
that people aren't lost and they know where they're going. Or to have someone on your staff that can answer these questions.
Sure.
And if you don't know, there are resources out there. Like I said, maybe we should write
Maybe
this
we
guide.
should read a guide.
But you know, the Independent Living Center has all kinds of information about, you know, actual requirements for accessibility. And they also have a lot of people with disabilities on staff who can say, oh, if you're looking at trying to accommodate this, maybe try this. And I know there are other organizations, I just know that they're a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who are willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just, like I said, you don't know till you know.
Sure.
And you don't have to be embarrassed about it. You don't have to be upset that you didn't know. But if you can know, then it can change everything.
Well, I think it's one of those things too that is like, if there's a planner at a venue, how do you not say, I don't 100% know, let me find out for you?
Right.
Like, don't
Right.
tell me you are, and then it's only 50%, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Right.
Yeah, and I think that there's at least opening the door to conversation.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I mean?
sure.
Like, don't be afraid to open the door to conversation, because we're all gonna make mistakes. We're all gonna say
Yeah.
the wrong thing unintentionally. But it's just
Oh,
a matter
absolutely.
of like, let's learn. Let's just be open to learning and growing and like making it, you know, a little bit better every time. What would you say to families?
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to push back. And definitely don't be afraid to say, if you can't go look at it, to say, can you send me a video of that? Or to say, I know you said you're accessible. Can we change the question? I now ask, if I were to come into your building, do I have to lift my feet?
That's an interesting way to think about
Yeah.
it. I definitely never thought about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, sure, he can go over an inch or two in his power chair, right? But if I actually have to lift my feet, if I'm shuffling my feet, which is another thing, especially as we talk about older relatives, right? They may not be able to lift up and step up any kind of threshold.
Yeah.
So changing the way you ask the question sometimes. Not, are your doors big enough? But where is your restroom located? How big is your restroom? Can your restroom accommodate a wheelchair? Can it accommodate a walker or an aid as well as the...
Do you find that a lot of the restrooms and stuff are kind of grandfathered in because they were built?
A lot of them are.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. And some of it's just, you know, the age of the buildings.
For sure.
Of course, looking at New Orleans, that's not any better.
That might be worse.
That might be tough.
Right? But, you know, you just think about that and you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
But also, in some instances, you can plan for that. Like if you know going in, that might not be a deal breaker, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe you know grandma's gonna need a restroom and she's not gonna really be able to use that one. Maybe, you know, she goes home between the ceremony and the reception, or, you know.
Shortly after the reception, whatever.
Yeah,
Right. You know,
Yeah.
you can make accommodations if you know, but if you don't know, then you're stuck. And you're like, oh, now I've had 3 chocolate martinis and there's no one to drive grandma home.
Like, crap. All right, Grandma, we're gonna stick you in an Uber. Is that all right? So, how is your daughter enjoying the process of wedding planning? If we shift gears a little bit, like is
she's a little overwhelmed.
Is she overwhelmed?
She is.
Yeah.
She is. I think that's pretty normal. There's been a whole bunch of changes, a whole bunch of different times.
Yeah.
There's parts that she's excited about.
Yeah.
And there's parts she's just like, why are weddings so expensive?
Well,
But I think that's
we talk
another
about that a lot.
topic.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. And how is Travis feeling about it?
He's excited.
Yeah.
He is. You know, there's a couple times he's been like, are they doing, you know, X, Y, and Z because of me? Because he's like, I can just not go.
That's heartbreaking.
And that's never been an option.
Right.
And, you know, and they said that right from the beginning. They're like, of course Travis is coming.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, you don't want to think about that. But there are people that do that. And, you know, no one wants to be thought of as a complication or a burden
Of course.
as all this planning goes on.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, you know, sometimes our conversations as we talk about this can cause those feelings without us even realizing it too. So if you need to complain or vent about a venue not being accessible, maybe don't have it directly in front of the person that it's an issue with.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the perfect way to kind of conclude this episode, is that remember what your wedding is for. Right? Your wedding is for 2 people making a commitment in front of the people that they love. And it honestly doesn't matter if it's in a courthouse or if it's in a field or if it's in a grand ballroom. Like having the people that you love there is really the most important thing. Right. Whatever that kind of looks like.
Right. Just finding a way to be able to include the people that are important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I do also want to mention that Kelly is a fantastic artist. So you should all go check her out, Whimsy by Kelly. What is your social handle? And
it's Whimsy by Kelly
Whimsy
on
by Kelly.
everything.
Nice. So definitely check her out. Anything else we should, last parting words?
It should still be fun no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a good time.
It's a wedding. It's a wedding. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Weddings Unfiltered. Be sure to like and subscribe and all of the things.